In times past, community policing simply meant finding the bad guys and taking them to jail. Today, law enforcement isn't just about enforcing the law, it's about improving the way we live together. Hi, I'm Joe Oliver, and this is City Beat, a television show brought to you by the Sacramento Police Department. Community-oriented policing isn't just a catchphrase, and it's not a program. It's a philosophy, and the Sacramento Police Department has fully embraced it.
We went out with probation and our gang unit and did a curfew sweep.
It starts here,
So they're bringing in the new group of drug dealers.
with people talking to people.
I think what we need to do and what we're started doing is working with ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Control.
This monthly gathering is called Cops and Coffee, and it's held right in the heart of Oak Park. This is a neighborhood experiencing rebirth by way of community involvement and business development.
And the children are out 11:30, 12, very young children. I don't think they even know there's a curfew.
The give and take at Cops and Coffee offers proof that positive change can happen, but not without the combined effort of a motivated community, the Sacramento Police Department, and the commitment of several other agencies. It's a partnership.
We have 4 buildings that in the last 3 weeks we've put floodlights on.
SACPD has a number of partner agencies in community policing. When we first started out in 1990, our partners were Code Enforcement, City Housing, SMUD, and Children's Protective Services. As time has gone on, the list is almost endless of the different partners that we utilize or that we work with. It all depends on what the problem is and who we can come up with that might be able to help reduce those problems. With housing, we're working on improving communication, particularly...
And that's the community-oriented policing philosophy, tailoring the service to fit the need. Neighborhood police officers, more commonly called NPOs, are specifically assigned to communities where crime is high and quality of life is low. They focus their efforts on issues that concern residents the most. Historically, police service has been reactive. A crime is committed, the police respond.
Another question I had is you were also mentioning that one store...
In today's world, community-oriented policing is proactive with the focus on problem solving. The key is to try to stop crime before it infiltrates a community.
We meet with them once a month, gather information on what things the community groups are concerned about, whether it's a drug house, a gang house, a particular business that's creating problems at 2:30 in the morning. We report back to them on locations that they've provided to us that they want something done at because of drugs or prostitution or loitering. We made 13 felony drug arrests that night, mostly in the Oak Park area, primarily for sales of rock cocaine.
The open communication between the police and the community has gone a long way in promoting understanding and patience. People believe their voices are being heard.
If it's an ongoing problem and you never see the light at the end of the tunnel, it gets very frustrating for people. But in this, or the way this is set up now, we get closure on specific problems, and that's very satisfying. Matter of fact, usually when the police say, yes, we checked out that property and went in and did a probe sweep and we arrested 3 people and found drugs, and the room breaks out in applause.
There are more than 400,000 citizens living within the incorporated city of Sacramento. The police department staff, sworn and civilian personnel, totals just over 1,000. You do the math. It goes without saying that the police can't always be at the right place at the right time. They must rely on their partnerships, and private citizens are part of the solution. This group actively takes part in cleaning up their neighborhood.
And all we do, and it's usually at rush hour on the last Friday of every month, and we show up with signs that are anti-prostitution signs, anti-John signs, and John is the man that's looking for the prostitute. And we make ourselves a presence on the main stroll, which is Broadway in Oak Park.
The oldest game in town won't be played on Broadway anymore or anywhere else in Oak Park if residents have their say. Prostitution invites illegal drug activity, and a criminal element is just not welcomed here. Law-abiding citizens of Oak Park are more than pleased with the partnership they have with their officers and their physical presence in the neighborhood.
To the criminal element, they hate it. It makes a big difference to them. The criminals, and this is cliche, but it's been said many times, are like roaches. If you shine a light, they run and scurry to get away.
And that's exactly what happened here on Seavey Circle on the south side of Sacramento. It's hard to believe this beautiful neighborhood was once infected with gangsters and criminals.
I would say it was kind of overwhelming. You had a lot of drugs, you had a lot of gang activity. You couldn't do certain things at certain hours. It was kind of chaotic. You wouldn't want other friends coming in because you were scared something might happen to them. My mother always, she was always like not letting us come outside, and it was kind of difficult.
Leah Tata Floyd has been a resident of Seavey Circle for nearly 2 decades.
Like he said, it was chaotic. It was almost out of control. We call the police when something's going on. It takes like 30 minutes for them to come because they know what's going on here. So what we tried to do, I was trying not to involve my kids in those kind of things, but I was trying to recruit the adult, residents to be out there doing the neighborhood watch and stuff like that, but nobody wanted to volunteer. We were scared.
It was during the early 90s that the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency approached the police department with a plea for help. They asked that 2 police officers be assigned to 2 of their housing developments, New Helvetia and River Oaks. This area of the city at the time had the highest crime rate in Sacramento. Officers Harold Bickle and Greg Diekman took the assignment, becoming 2 of the department's first neighborhood police officers. This was going to be their toughest assignment ever.
At about that time in 1992, there were officer safety bulletins issued by our gang unit instructing officers not to come in here alone, and in fact to respond to calls for service only, 3 cars at a time. Specifically, it was a combat zone. There was a homicide about every 4 weeks during the summer months. The area was largely controlled by gangs that fought for control of the rock cocaine trade. 29th Street Crips, Project Gangster Bloods, the Barrio Cinco, some Asian gangs as well. There was just a collective of gangs that were making money with the street drug trade at the time. But the worst problems by far, in terms of the open-air drug market, came from people outside, both the customers or the addicts, and then the most violent gangsters, who of course preyed upon this neighborhood in a very different way because their mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers didn't live here.
The philosophy of community-oriented policing works with this practical approach. Officers are equipped with the tools and the decision-making power to implement positive change. The neighborhood police office is physically located in the heart of the problem area. A long-term approach is taken to problem solving, and a community is empowered by forming partnerships between residents, the police, and other government agencies and private business. This philosophy was clearly followed here on Seavey Circle. Officers Bickle and Diekman set the stage for this highly successful effort.
Team set?
You bet!
An effort that paved the way for a healthier and safer place to live for many residents. But they give all the credit to the partnerships.
In terms of partnerships, we had a host of partners. And true to the community-oriented policing philosophy, they were responsible for all of our successes. As the police, we were just a hub at the center of the wheel. We had partners that in effect did all the work. We had enhanced prosecutions. We had civil evictions, courtesy of the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. We had some of the best equipment available, including pagers and cell phones when other cops didn't have them, night vision, bicycles. We had partnerships with welfare, probation, parole, community activists, including Greyhound bus lines, the Salvation Army, the Boys and Growth Club. A lot of people were bringing resources to the table. We had tutors from Sacramento State University, and from a plethora of organizations. We had a number of individuals that formed 2 nonprofits for us. We had nonprofits and then neighborhood associations also donating money and computers for our kids program. We could take our kids to the beach. We could take our kids to the snow. And these are kids that had never seen either one.
Julian Navarrete grew up in the projects during those turbulent times.
Before they implemented the community policing program in our neighborhood, it was kind of difficult interacting with the police because we always thought they were coming in to either take somebody to jail or just come in and harass. We saw them in a negative way. It was never in a positive way.
Officers Bickle and Diekman had a significant impact on the children of the neighborhood.
How you doing? Gonna play basketball later?
Yeah.
All right.
See you later, Bickle.
Bye-bye.
Julian is now a police officer himself for the city of Sacramento.
Sergeant Bickle and Sergeant Dickman were very influential in my life because when the program started, they were the first two officers that were placed here in Stevens Circle. They came in, they talked to us, they got involved with us, they were coaches, they coached the Police Athletic League football team. And they pretty much showed that they cared. They came out here in their authoritative gear, you know, with the police uniforms, and we were like, wow, this is interesting. You know, we've never seen officers come in and take their time and talk to us on our level. It showed me that I would like to do something like that. You know, they came in and showed that they were going to help us out. They were showing that they cared. It made a big impact in my life.
As I've said, you know, just like it takes a whole village to raise a child, it really takes the entire community to police itself, because the police officers are not going to be in those neighborhoods 24/7 at every one of those corners or in every one of those homes or apartments or businesses where the problems are occurring. And so it really requires us to be a heck of a lot more strategic, not only in the way that we deploy, but in the analysis of what the problems may be.
We weren't sure that this was going to work, and we never really thought it would work as well as it did. But we hung with it, and we didn't have a lot of pressure from above. Our administration gave us the time to work on these problems and didn't demand success overnight or short-term problem-solving strategies. We just hit our long-term strategies, went with our long-term plan, and it got better over time. It works. It really works.
Other methods of cleaning up the neighborhood had been attempted, but those programs were short-term and not effective.
In public housing, programs come and programs go, and you see them become ineffective over time. And we needed to persuade them that we were here to stay, and we were committed, we were going to be effective.
To be effective, they had to be visible and available. They made themselves known as neighborhood police officers by wearing hats, something the regular patrol officers didn't do. And they quickly became known as the Mad Hatters.
We became known by the Mad Hatters because a large percentage of the population here was non-English speaking. As we began to interact with a lot of the residents here, we would tell them to tell their non-English speaking neighbors that the cops in the hats, the old beat-style patrol caps, were their neighborhood police officers, so that they could differentiate us from other cops, because the other cops had calls for service they had to handle. They couldn't afford to stay for another 45 minutes or an hour and discuss problems in the neighborhood. So it became a tool for the neighborhood people to seek us out and identify us. Later on, it became a tool for the gangsters. And once they saw the hats, they would yell, "Hats, hats, hats." We were a problem for them because we had all day to pursue them, and they wanted no part of that.
It's been great working with the officers. You have the support where you want to continue to take care of the problems as far as the criminal activity that's going on here.
The key partnership in this neighborhood policing effort was the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. They conceived it along with the administration in our department. They funded it, and they were also receptive to an ongoing, close relationship.
Our goal is to help our residents become the best resident that they can possibly be. We want them to be able to follow through with their lease obligations. We want to be able to counsel them on how to be a successful resident. And getting information from neighborhood police officers on what might be going on in certain areas, what might be going on with certain families, helps us to go talk to that family, work with that family, possibly set that family up with additional resources so that they can be the most successful resident that they can be. Ultimately, that's our bottom line goal.
But nothing good happens overnight.
2 years into the program, we started to see a marked decrease in the narcotics activity on the street. And by that time, we also had a very successful youth program. So we were accepted by the parents as people that not only would arrest people at night, but that would work with kids during the day.
The proof was in the numbers. In a 3-year period, total calls for service in this area were reduced by 64%. Violent crime was down by 66%, and narcotics calls a remarkable 95% reduction. Even medical calls to the fire department dropped 36%. This new approach by law enforcement was working.
Community-oriented policing is a philosophy.
And while we want to describe it and sometimes act like it's a program, it's not. It's a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. And so what the background for community policing was to change the thought process for law enforcement agencies such as ours so that we would think in a community policing fashion. If you looked at it as a program, it would have an ending. Well, we don't expect it to have an ending. We expect it to keep moving forward.
And today, community-oriented policing continues to move forward here on CV Circle. Sacramento police officers Adam Vassallo and Greg Halstead now have this assignment, and the police department is still in partnership with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, as well as a multitude of other government agencies. They continue to build on the strong foundation begun by Officers Bickle and Diekman.
When the first officers started in here, they started the program called the V Team, and that's the Victory Team. And those are kids from ages 7 to 12. We meet with them twice a week, and some other days when we go on trips and things of that nature, but most of the time it's 2 days a week. They come in, and sometimes after school they do their homework, and if they do their homework and participate in the activities, then we'll go out and we'll play some games. We have lots of sports equipment for them. We have computers for them to play on and interact with, and it's a good feeling when the kids are here and they're having a good time, and you know that they're getting something positive and not out running the streets, maybe doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
The last meeting we had, it was kind of funny. The biggest complaint that the majority of the community had out here was that people illegally parked, people speeding and running stop signs. And you compare that to 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where their biggest complaints in here were people were being shot and stabbed, the high narcotic activity, the high gang activity, and that is virtually gone. And if we can go to a meeting every month and their biggest complaint is illegally parked people, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
A lot of people say that community policing is nothing different than what was done by the original footbeat officers before the era of police cars and horses and bikes and things like that, because the original cops knew the people in their beat, knew the businesses, knew who the problem people were. As we became mobile, we lost some of that contact. Community policing has taken huge strides with the technology of today that the cops of former days didn't have access to. Now we can pull up information on a robbery series, a burglary pattern, and not only can we go out and sit on the businesses or in the area that are being hit, but we can pull up the information on who the parolees are that have been paroled to that area, whose primary charge is burglary or robbery. We can go make contact with them, try to figure out what they're into, see if there's any stolen property in their residences. So technology really has advanced community policing, from what policing was way back when.
Patrol officers must move quickly from one call to the next, but neighborhood police officers have more time to work with kids and families and to focus on specific problem areas. Some are concerned that this move toward community-oriented policing means law enforcement won't be tough enough on the criminal element.
The perception is that community policing is soft on crime. And we didn't do any of the softer methods of community policing for at least a year. We didn't have a youth program. We didn't give interviews with the media. We just worked the streets. We did strict enforcement with a foot patrol between the buildings at night.
What you see now at River Oaks really was kind of like the evolution of what is called in law enforcement circles the weed and seed effort. And we recognized early that we had to go in and weed out the criminals that were living in that housing project. We recognized, and so did the Sacramento Housing Redevelopment Agency then, that, you know what, just because you were poor didn't necessarily mean that you had to live in a crime-infested neighborhood. The two officers invested tremendous amount of time in just doing basic police work. And I think, you know, it really taught us what really community policing was all about.
There are still neighborhoods in trouble in the city of Sacramento. And there are people in those neighborhoods who deserve a better quality of life. Partnerships still need to be formed, with many people committed to change. Community-oriented policing works.
Are we successful? I believe we've been successful, and that there are other things that we could do. We only fail if we stop, and we're not prepared to stop. And I don't think our community is prepared to stop, because we do want a great environment for our children. We want a great environment for our work. We want a great environment to be in the city of Sacramento, to live, learn, work, and play.
The shift toward community-oriented policing has not only had a positive impact on the community, it's also paved the way for careers in law enforcement that many of these recruits may have never considered before. This is the vision most people have of police work. Fast driving, lights flashing, and sirens blaring.
If a person's framework on police work is what they see on TV, you are not going to see community-oriented policing. TV is you get in speeding chases all the time, you get in shootouts, and you see very little working with the community to solve problems. If the recruit comes into the academy with that frame of mind, then they're going to be very disappointed, because that is not what law enforcement is about.
Recruits in the Sacramento Police Academy do practice their driving skills, their self-defense drills, and their marksmanship. But the department chooses carefully, selecting men and women who use their brain over their brawn.
Before, I think organizations were looking for people that were just physically fit to take on such a demanding job, whereas today we're looking for individuals who want to interface with the community.
Never before has police work attracted such a diverse group of people.
And I was a business major and actually have a bachelor's degree in business administration.
But I actually started in the music field.
Most of the officers have college degrees in everything from horticulture to criminal justice.
These men and women here at the Academy have chosen to be sworn police officers. Some come prepared for the challenge, and some even surprise themselves after they get here.
Out there at the physical agility, I saw a lot of people that probably never ran an obstacle course before, let alone know what it was like to jump over a fence. But you know what? They got in there and they did it, and they were successful at it.
All graduates of this academy will start as patrol officers, but opportunity for growth is tremendous.
Probably the best thing about the Sacramento Police Department is that there is upward and sideways mobility in a lot of different areas. We have so many different units. There are our school resource division, we have an air unit, a horse patrol, bike patrols, regular patrol, our detective divisions, narcotics, vice. I mean, almost anything that you can think of with any metropolitan police department we have here in Sacramento.
You can do canine, you can go to narcotics, you can come to traffic like I did. You can go to any of the specialized POP units, you can go to detectives, bikes. It's really your choice.
Where my heart is at these days is community-oriented policing, a POP officer.
The focus of the academy training is community-oriented policing.
We can run it through the computer system, right? See if it's stolen. What else am I going to be looking for when I'm going through all that stuff? Remember, think like cops do.
We have instructors who are experienced practitioners of the concepts of both problem-oriented policing and community-oriented policing. And they introduce that in the lecture and when they talk in the class, and they give examples of things that they've done in this field or on the streets, things that have worked for them, things that haven't worked for them.
When we're teaching vehicle stop training, for example, you can get through the mechanics of how to do a vehicle stop. But from there you get into how you deal with the public, how you work traffic problems, and it's much more than just get out of the car and write a ticket.
As law enforcement has advanced in technology, so has the need for qualified computer technicians. There are a variety of careers in police work that are not street enforcement. Community service officers, or CSOs, help to reduce the workload of sworn officers by taking reports or transporting witnesses. Crime scene investigators, made popular recently by the television show CSI, respond to crime scenes, collect evidence, and create diagrams. They work closely with detectives in labs. ID technicians take photographs and fingerprints. And dispatchers are the hub of the department. Officers in the field count on them for fast and accurate information. They take incoming calls and follow events from beginning to end. Police recruiters start early, encouraging young people to begin thinking about a career in the police department.
And we speak to the students to let them know that it's never too young to start preparing for a career in law enforcement.
and not just the police officer positions, but for a lot of the other positions within the department, and to start living their life properly now.
Go online and check out current job announcements, qualifications for employment, and application deadlines. The Sacramento Police Department's website is www.sacpd.org. Or if you'd prefer to talk to a police department recruiter by telephone, just call the number on the screen. Those who choose a career in public safety often say they feel it's a calling. It's in their blood. For them, it's an opportunity to help others, and they do it selflessly, certainly not expecting recognition. But you, the people they serve, often do recognize these special men and women through letters of thanks. We'd like to share some of those kind words recognizing the efforts of the police department in this segment we call Above and Beyond.
I received a phone call from our neighbor across the street. There's someone in this neighborhood who didn't belong. This man was trying to break into our car. He proceeded to jump our back fence. I was alone with my children. I called 911. The police were here in a matter of minutes with a canine unit. They were very thorough, and they had no intention of leaving until they found him.
The residents of 62nd Street in South Sacramento all signed this letter of thanks to officers who responded to a 911 call of an intruder.
We take great pride in our neighborhood, and we wanted to say thank you for being here quickly and doing a great job. And that's why we felt the need to write a letter to thank them for doing so.
The residents of 62nd Street in Sacramento would like to thank
Officer Kathy Fritchie, Officer Adam Green,
Officer Eric Forbeck,
Officer Matthew Armstrong,
and Community Service Officer Charles Gailey.
The officers did a great job. They responded quickly, and we're very grateful for it.
The Sacramento Police Department has a solid commitment to serving this community. Its top priority is crime reduction through problem solving. The philosophy of community-oriented policing begins with each and every individual that works for the police department. But it couldn't be successful without you and others who join in the partnerships to keep Sacramento safe. On behalf of the Sacramento Police Department, thanks for watching City Beat. I'm Joe Oliver. We'll see you next time.